This is Raghav, a Muay Thai champion who's also the head of an illegal fight ring. Very powerful and feared everywhere he goes. He gets to have everything he wants, with only one exception, an actress named Saya. But even that is about to be corrected as his goons arrive with the news that they finally located her. And that's not even all of poor Saya's problems. At the movie set, we see that the director is her dad, Karana, and he is a complete idiot. When Raghav's men arrive, he mistakes them for actors in the action scene and even plays with an actual gun, thinking it's a prop. That behavior changes abruptly when he sees Raghav. He starts making promises about paying his debt, but Raghav is not here to collect money. Saya is unconscious when they leave the building. While Raghav flies her abroad, an officer tells Karana that local police don't stand a chance against Raghav. He tries his luck with higher authorities, but no one will risk crossing such a dangerous man. Now his daughter is in Bangkok, locked up many floors above the ground. Karana knows that it's time to seek help from the only person who can still save her. And that would be this guy here, who's showing off his incredible balance. His name is Ronnie, and his performance is ruined by a phone call from the hospital. The doctor explains that little Subbu has a chance to speak again. The problem is that Dr. Stevens is in India for a few days only, and the surgery is very expensive. Ronnie won't have much time to raise the money. Probably not the best time to approach him with an international rescue mission, right? Gadu Sohan begs to differ. He introduces himself as a very unlucky film producer whose stars are always getting into some kind of trouble. This one even got herself kidnapped. Would you believe it? He's prepared to pay any price to have her back and finish the movie. That last part really gets Ronnie's attention. It's just as if the money for Subbu's operation had fallen right on his lap. Sadly, it's not so simple. When he sees her photo, he gets very nervous and upset, but he says he'll do it, making sure to clarify it's only for the money. Not that anyone had said otherwise. On his flight to Bangkok, Ronnie's mind drifts into painful memories. A rainy day. Many years ago, he meets Saya on a train. She is talking to a cloud and throwing a tantrum because it stopped raining. Instead of having her committed, he falls in love right there and then. But she is a tough lady and decides to fight his advances with a beautiful choreography in the rain, which also attracts another man's attention. Fortunately, Raghav has some crime stuff to tend to and can't disrupt her act just now. When she's finally done with the dancing, she's also ready to give Ronnie a chance. But now her dad is missing and the train is about to leave again. Ronnie says he'll find him, and as soon as he leaves, Karana shows up behind her asking what the fuss is all about. She tries to tell Ronnie, but he can't make out what she's saying. It's too late when he realizes it, and he ends up missing the train himself. While the star-crossed lovers whine about their fate, Raghav is trying to convince his father to be less strict with all the traditions. Guruswamy runs the Royal Academy of Martial Arts, and he does not like this kind of talk. Raghav is here to captain the boat race, but this time he won't be leaving that soon. Guruswamy says he wants to see his son married. Now, guess who's about to enroll? Ronnie, of course. But we can't say he's off to a great start here. Barely making it through the combat training area, he walks into the building like a rhino in a meditation session. Ignoring all the heavy frowns, he makes sure to get the teacher's attention anyway. Ronnie's father, who was very ill and is probably gone by now, wrote a letter to his old friend Guruswamy. He says he's deeply worried about Ronnie's future because, well, he is a moron. Guruswamy's academy is his last hope to become a decent human being. So now Guruswamy is just cornered by a friend's inconvenient last wish and has no choice but to accept the kid. Of course, he first makes sure to teach him to respect the elderly by body slamming the boy flat on the floor twice. After that, Ronnie meets Harish. He introduces him to Subbu, explaining that he can't speak. Ronnie barely acknowledges the child, asking about the bed and the aslashti. In response, Harish rolls out a thin mat and opens the window. Then he tells him to hurry up because today it is a big day. It's the highly anticipated Vallam Kali boat race, and Raghav has a happy surprise. Saya is in the crowd too. He seems to get an energy boost to see her cheering them on. The competition is tough, but his team is the first to cross the finish line. While his teammates want to collect their trophy, he couldn't care less about it. His own special trophy seems to have vanished. That was silly of him. All he had to do was follow the rain clouds. He'd soon find her graciously spinning under the pouring rain like a lunatic. Luckily, this time Ronnie shows up before she can start the contagious dancing. Not that his idea is any better. He wants to convince her to break into the lighthouse. But even her has more sense than that. They part ways again with a little private joke about meeting when it rains again. At the academy, Raghav has no trouble defeating his opponents. Ronnie watches him briefly while he's sneaking out. A moment of distraction, where he daydreams about Saya, gives the other guy a short-lived advantage. When he sees the other fighter had the audacity to fight back, Raghav responds with all his might and must be stopped by his father. While the atmosphere gets tense between them, Ronnie is just relaxing with Harish and Subbu. They start talking about the mysterious girl and end up getting the attention of a man at the next table, who happens to be Karana. He starts to give Ronnie advice on romance, without knowing that the lady in question is his own daughter. They all have a few laughs and pretend not to notice how Karana is stealing their drinks and some of their food. In the morning, Ronnie meets his unconventional alarm clock. The rest of his day is equally difficult, full of demanding and exhausting tasks. When it starts raining, he runs to the spot where he hopes to find his sweetheart. She has the same idea, but someone is knocking at the door. Raghav really means business, bringing a bunch of guys with him. So much so that Karana fears it might be some debt collector and decides to play safe, faking blindness and saying Saya's father died yesterday. One of the guys is onto him, so he says they're here to give him something and not ask for anything. He immediately reveals his true identity and offers tea to the guests. Saya steps away for a moment to help her mom in the kitchen. Little does she know that her future is about to get sold. Raghav makes an offer which Karana doesn't even try to refuse. He tells him to set a date and let him know. Meanwhile, Saya is at the lighthouse, soaking wet and very sad. How come Ronnie stood her up like this? He didn't, of course. He's just on the other side, also soaking wet and very sad. Our only hope now is that they never have children to inherit such brilliance. Saya eventually starts an argument with the clouds again, and Ronnie comes to laugh at her. Then, the two lovebirds go on a canoe ride down the river, do some coconut art together, and the whole thing turns into another dance performance. The romance grows stronger, and Saya gives him a ring, asking him to never take it off. She says it was a present from her dad, probably fake then. Ronnie gets home late, and Guruswamy is not happy about that. The boys had a few and comes across ruder than usual. He even says the Shaolin have much better martial arts than what he's supposed to be learning here. Guruswamy says the Chinese learned it all from Lord Buddha centuries ago, including the 18 hands of Buddha technique. A quick demonstration makes Ronnie sober up instantly. He gets the point now, but says he's still anxious to get started. It's all work, work, work here. Is this a training academy or a Rihanna song? Guruswamy's reply has no words. Ronnie is astonished at his ability to block the master's attack. It was not just work after all. And now the little punk seems to be ready for more. So Guruswamy begins the formal instruction, while the day work continues as it was. Ronnie develops his fighting skills and grows stronger day by day. Raghav pats him on the back and tells him to keep up the great work. Yeah, but we know something they don't, right? And here she is. Ronnie is all excited about a present to Guruswamy, as his master has become a father figure now. But their shopping fun is spoiled by an awkward encounter with Karana. Saya manages to flee the scene before he gets there, but the ring gives them away. So now it's his turn to have an awkward talk. Raghav says he'll do anything to marry Saya, including murder. He might have said that last bit too loud, though. His father is shocked to hear that, and says he'll never permit such an atrocity. Raghav decides to use a special recipe for dinner, then, with some poison-sprinkled rice for Daddy. He keeps watching the old man's final battle before dumping the evidence into the pool. Then, he makes a phone call. Ronnie and Subiu are having ice cream when the goons arrive. One of them grabs the little boy, and that whole group of grown men start tossing him around. Furious to see that, Ronnie puts his training to good use. Those guys' faces will never be the same again, as well as some other parts. Subiu stops him before he goes too far, and that's how one of them gets to leave the place walking. Raghav decides to sort it out himself. A crowd gathers around them to watch the fight. Raghav is the world champion and has been trained since he was little, but Ronnie still gives him a run for his money. But it was never a fair fight to begin with. Annoyed to see his rival relentlessly getting back up every time, Raghav signals for his men to take him out. Ronnie gives them a gasoline shower and finally has the chance to ask what this is about. Raghav says women love nothing but power, and that means he'll easily have Saya. And we're back to present day in Bangkok. Saya is destroying her bedroom in despair. Raghav finds that adorable. He tells her there is nothing to fear. He won't touch her until they get married. Meanwhile, Ronnie is arriving at Santre, Raghav's fight club. He steps into the ring to challenge the champion. All he has to do is lift one leg at the right moment. That's it for the other guy, his teeth, and his self-esteem. Ronnie gets noticed as planned, staring at the camera long enough for a snapshot. Then he waits. His mind goes back in time again. After Guruswami's funeral, the police come to arrest him, and he can see they are in cahoots with Raghav when they drive past each other. But he's surprised to see Karana waving back at him from the enemy's car. Later on, he tells Saya about it, but Karana had bailed him out of jail so she wouldn't suspect anything. She refuses to believe her dad is so evil. Ronnie must leave, since Subiu will never be safe around that gang. They will take the 6 o'clock train tomorrow morning. He says that, if she loves him, she'll be there to say goodbye. At night, Karana overhears his daughter crying and talking about what happened. A bit of work on his own face helps him avoid the consequences of his actions. Stumbling into the living room, he tells Saya that Ronnie did this to him and then tossed away the ring she gave him. She is very upset, but also terrified to hear that Raghav is after them now. The family must leave the city as soon as possible. In the morning, Ronnie gets in the train with a broken heart. The ring is still there. In fact, he is still wearing that ring today, in Bangkok. When the henchmen come, he fights them off and outsmarts them all over again, and he comes out of it with the address he needed. So he finds Raghav's right hand, Biju. The man talks pretty quickly, giving up Saya's location and the whole security system. The building is packed with professional killers, swordsmen, and martial artists. All of them are ready to fight for the boss. Even if someone could get past them, they're still young. Biju says this guy is death in a Chinese body. Poor Saya is sitting on top of all this, in Raghav's penthouse, trying to stay awake. As she dozes off, he puts an expensive gift around her neck. She's startled awake, and he has fun watching her beat the bodyguards until one of them hits her on the head. She is unresponsive now, and Raghav is worried sick. He calls Biju, not knowing that Ronnie has his wife at gunpoint, and lets him know that Saya is being rushed to the hospital. A few minutes later, we see Dr. Ronnie walking through the hallways undetected. It's not hard to guess which room she is in, given the heavily guarded door. She needs a double take to believe her eyes, but then she's ready to take action, and that nurse is her first victim. Now they have an extra costume for Saya. Raghav eventually notices there's something wrong. Running past the fake doctors, he makes them stop and turn around, and he tells them to remove their masks because the genius wasn't sure yet. In an unexpected move, Ronnie takes Saya hostage and forces them to drop their guns before he drags her into the elevator. Not wanting to fall behind in the dramatic measures department, Raghav jumps out the window with nothing but a fire hose to reduce the impact. But all he finds in the elevator are the lab coats and masks. Ronnie and Saya are leaving the hospital, but Yang is right outside. They get in a taxi and the henchmen start to fire. Raghav comes running and tells them to stop. No crossfire near his bride. One of them accidentally hits Yang's brother, and that's the last thing he'll ever do. Night falls, and now Ronnie is with Saya at the dock, arranging for a boat to take them. Saya gives the expensive necklace to the taxi driver, who helped them all along, so he can come back to India and see his family again. Once they reach a safe place, it's time for a heart-to-heart. Ronnie clarifies that he is getting paid for this, and that's the only reason he's here at all. They start an argument, but a rain cloud decides they have no time for this nonsense. He offers her his shirt, and she sees the ring, finally understanding what really happened. So they make amends and are totally ready to start a life together now that the nightmare is over. Or so they thought, before being ambushed by a whole team of black suits. They attack Ronnie while Yang and Biju make their entrance, closely followed by their boss. Raghav says he wasn't always a monster, but these two have made him so. He holds Saya by the hair to make her watch and leads Ronnie to his boys. When they're close to the edge, Biju fires and Ronnie falls off the cliff. Now Saya is back in the gloomy penthouse. She sees it's raining and says Ronnie must be on his way to meet her. Raghav laughs at her because he doesn't know she is right. Ronnie is right outside, kicking his way into the building. And then each floor is just like the next phase in a video game for him. When someone sounds the alarm and Ronnie's face shows up on the security cameras, Raghav understands that he was betrayed. Ronnie had mercifully spared Biju and his wife before, when he had every reason to do the opposite. He returned the favor when Ronnie was ambushed and fired a gun that had no bullets. Not a fan of second chances, Raghav gets rid of his best friend right away. Only a few floors are between them now. Raghav sends his best men to stop Ronnie, but they don't stand a chance. After playing around with Yang as if he were a glow stick, Ronnie and Saya finally face their enemy with no entourage to help him. Raghav hurts Saya for the first time and complains about everything he's done for her. Poisoning his own father is the one thing among those he should not have mentioned. For a loyal pupil, that is the last straw. Ronnie says he might not be Gurvaswami's son, but he certainly takes after him. Raghav tries to deny it, but he can see all the familiar movements perfectly executed. Then, Ronnie puts into practice the deadliest techniques he had learned. At last, Raghav is permanently defeated. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2016 movie Baaghi by Nadyadwala Grandson Entertainment, starring Tiger Shroff and Shraddha Kapoor Evans. So, which character do you think was more likable, Saya or Ronnie? And which villain was worse, Raghav or Karana? Let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.